Hello everyone, Mr. Flubberjack here today. On to the actual subject at hand. Does it ever scare anybody with the kind of freedoms that we're capable of when it comes to the ability to draw and create art? Even creating shows or comics or any form of entertainment, it's not exactly legal to kill, but there's a lot of people, characters specifically, that die in media, and nobody ever talks about it.
I am death.
Death? We don't want any.
It seems that the ability to witness death in a fantasy world is something that a lot of modern people today still crave. Even if characters aren't dying on screen, there's many things that allude to the idea of death. Sometimes it's the story having intense lore that focuses on the past and how there was a great war that a lot of people died in. Or in order for there to be stakes in the story, not little stakes, but actual, consequences and stuff, the character has to have this fear of dying. And if it's not the character itself, maybe it's another character that needs rescuing. Now, nobody is allowed to kill in real life. It's immoral. But when it's in the confinements of a fictional story, for some reason it's totally acceptable. Now, I'm not proposing that death, the concept either way, should be taken out of art completely, not at all. Rather, I'm more intrigued that sometimes the most evilest acts, if condensed into a piece of artwork, can be admired and respected, just for the very fact that it exists, and nobody can be blamed as an actual criminal. Basically, it feels like the author is getting away with murder.
Why, Grim? Why do the good die young?
Well, usually because I get confused.
Himmel, Eisen, Heider, Frieren. Beyond Journey's End is a perfect representation of how death could be utilized to be a springboard for creating good stories. Our protagonists are Himmel, who is always concerned with his looks, but overall is the definition of what it means to be a hero in this world. Eisen, who is just a dwarf. Heider, a priest who fails at being holy because of his large drinking problem. And Frieren, a magical mage. After she separates with her group, you can start to understand that she's a little bit more desensitized to the passage of time, up until she comes around and sees one of her old friends, Himmel, who is now reduced to this old man. Turns out, it had been 50 years since they last separated, all of them as a group. 50 years ago, before the group actually disbanded, that night in the sky lied a meteor shower, signifying the end to their 10-year-long journey, but ultimately the beginning of a new peaceful era. Once those years had finally gone by, and they chose their second time to view it once again as a group of friends, Himmel was on the verge of his deathbed. Every single one of the townsfolk were incredibly sad to see the state of Himmel as of now. An old lady, out of anger or sadness, questions why Frieren isn't more upset about this. One of her greatest friends, or at least what she perceives to be one of her closest friends, is now dead. 10 years is most likely the amount of time that 10 months takes for us, because Frieren is already past 300 years old, and doesn't take the time to really get to know anybody that's closest to her. Upon this realization, she starts to cry. This is the main gimmick of Beyond Journey's End story, because every time that one of her friends ends up dying, there is something that's left behind, or there's a wish that she's trying to grant for them before they pass on, or if they are already passed on, then there's a little bit of them living within inside of her, and it kind of pains her sometimes when she can't exactly remember, well, even then, understand how they lived. As far as any cons go, I wish that we knew Frieren's friends a little bit more. That way, their deaths could be more impactful. And that's really the only thing that I wish from the series.